thee. The wind was restless that night, sweeping across the outlands with a cold whisper that carried memories darker than the land itself. The moon hung low, casting pale light over cracked earth and thorny bushes. The outlands always felt silent, empty, forgotten. But the truth was far more dangerous. Darkness never leaves. It hides. It waits, and on this night, it stirred again. Long after Zira's fall into the river, or after her roar faded beneath the crashing water, the outlands should have been peaceful. Her lionesses should have scattered. Her cubs should have abandoned the twisted teachings she had carved into their hearts. But Zira's presence lingered like poison in the air, a shadow that refused to die. Deep within a dry ravine, a group of lionesses gathered. Their coats were rough, their eyes sharp with hunger and anger. These were the rogues lionesses who once followed Zira, who once believed in Scar's rule, who once bowed to a queen whose hatred burned brighter than the sun. They had lived in silence since the defeat. But silence does not mean surrender. Itani, now leading the Lion Guard in the Pridelands, believed her mother's influence was gone. Kiora believed the war ended the moment the Outsiders joined them. Simba believed peace finally reached every corner of the kingdom. But they were wrong. A lioness with a torn ear named Nyota stepped forward. She had been Zira's most devoted fighter, the one who trained under her claws, the one who memorized every word Zira spoke. Even after Zira's death, her voice echoed in Nyota's dreams, strong and unforgiving. Scar lives through us, Nyota growled to the gathered lionesses. Zira lives through us. The Pridelands may have forgotten, but we have not. A low rumble of agreement swept through the group. But Zira is gone, a younger lioness whispered, trembling. No, Nyota answered with a chilling smile. Zira cannot die. Naturally. Not as long as her ideals live. We are her legacy. Her claws, her roar. Then, as if summoned by the very power of her words, the wind carried a faint, unmistakable voice, a whisper almost too soft to hear. Finish what I started. The lionesses froze. Their fur bristled. Some backed away in fear. But Nyota stepped forward, closing her eyes as if the voice belonged to a goddess she worshipped. She whispered into the night, though Zira was not her mother by blood, only by ideology. Silence. But the damage was done. The doctrine of Zira, the belief that strength is dominance, that Scar is the rightful king, that the Pridelands deserve punishment, wakened once more in their hearts. Nyota turned toward the lionesses. We were taught to fight, to never kneel, to make Scar's name eternal. Have you forgotten? One by one, their eyes hardened. This was how Zira's influence returned her through magic. Not through spirits, but through memories sharpened into weapons. Far from the Outlands. In the Pridelands, Kion patrolled with the Lion Guard. The grasslands glowed bright under the sun. Everything seemed peaceful. But Kion suddenly halted. The lionesses roared in agreement. But one lioness, Sharan, she ran under the cover of darkness, all the way to the Pridelands, desperate and shaking. She reached Pride Rock at dawn. Kiora approached first. Are you hurt? Asha nodded. I came to warn you. Simba stepped forward. Speak. Nyota plans to attack, she said breathlessly. She believes Zira still speaks to her. She believes Scar must rise again. She won't stop. Simba exchanged a grave look with Nella. As the sun rose, casting long shadows over the plains, the Pridelands prepared. The Lion Guard stood ready. The royal family gathered, and the rogue army approached. Dust swirled behind them as dozens of lionesses marched forward, eyes burning with Zira's doctrine. At the front was Nyota, teeth bared, hatred written on her face. Simba stepped forward. "This land has enough scars," he said. "Turn back," Nyota snarled. "You stole everything from us. Scar was our king. Zira was our queen. We fight in their name." Kion stepped beside Simba. "Scar's rule destroyed the Outlands. Zira's hate destroyed your lives. You're following ghosts," Nyota roared. "I am following truth." The lionesses surged. The battle began, but something unexpected happened. As they charged, Kion's eyes glowed. The roar ignited within him. Not to destroy them, but to reveal the truth. He unleashed the roar of the elders straight into the sky, not at the rogues. Winds spiraled, swirling dust and voices around them. And then Zira's voice echoed, not the voice Nyota remembered, but the voice of her final moment. "Stop! I will not fight! For Kiara has shown me the true path. There is no victory in hate." The rogues froze. Nyota's eyes widened in horror. No, that's not her. That can't be her. But it was. They had followed a lie, a twisted memory, a doctrine corrupted by grief and anger. One by one, the lionesses lowered their heads. Their rage collapsed into confusion, into shame. Nyota dropped to her knees. Everything I believed, everything she taught, was wrong? Simba stepped closer. Zira chose revenge. You can choose something better. The plains fell silent. And slowly, the rogue lionesses turned away from the Outlands, from Zira's shadow, and from the path of destruction. They walked toward the Pride Lands not as enemies, but as lost souls finally freed from a ghost's grip. Nyota remained last, staring at the horizon. Kion approached gently. "You were loyal. Not evil." He followed someone who suffered too much. Nyota closed her eyes. "What am I now?" "A lioness with a choice," Kion said. More, and for the first time, Nyota breathed, without the weight of Zira's doctrine. The Pride Lands watched the sun rise, bright and warm, washing away the last echo of Zira's darkness. But legends say the wind still carries her whisper. Not as a threat, not as a curse, but as a reminder. Her treat survives only if you let it. And even the loudest echo eventually fades. The desert wind pressed against the rogue lionesses as they journeyed deeper into the barren lands. Their paws aching, their bodies worn, yet their spirits sharpened by the fire Zira had left burning inside them. The sun dipped low, painting the sky with streaks of gold and ember, and in that fading light, they moved like shadows across the cracked earth. Jaziri's territory lay far behind them now. They had chosen the path of defiance, the path Zira would have wanted. Every step echoed her teachings, every breath carried the weight of her doctrine, and though she was gone, her influence stalked beside them like a ghost. At the center of the formation moved Kibi, the lioness who had taken it upon herself to carry Zira's legacy. Her voice, calm yet commanding, heard through the silence as she reminded them why they walked this treacherous path. Zira may have fallen, but her dream had not. Scar's ideology had not. What they followed was not just a leader, but a belief that the Pride Lands had stolen everything from them. That Simba had wronged them long before they were even old enough to understand why. The doctrine was simple: strength over weakness, loyalty over fear, vengeance over forgiveness. As night fell, they reached the canyon Zira, once used as a secret meeting ground. The bones of her past followers still lay scattered in the shadows, untouched and preserved by time. Kibi paused, staring at the skull of an outsider lioness she once knew. Slow, She lowered her head, whispering a vow that the war Zira never finished would one day be reignited. The others followed her lead, murmuring Zira's old chants, the ones she drilled into every outsider cub. For the first time since her death, the canyon felt alive again. The chants grew louder, the air vibrating with a dark unity, a purpose awakened. But this time, they were leaderless, and the lionesses sensed it. The doctrine had power, but no direction. They needed more than belief, they needed a spark. That spark arrived the next morning, when the scent of lions carried across the wind. Kibi's ears perked up, her muscles tightening. Not pride landers, not hyenas. The scent was familiar yet old, a remnant of a time before even Simba's reign. Meh. When a massive male lion stepped from behind the rocks, the rogue lionesses froze. His mane was dark, streaked with age, but his eyes burned with unmistakable ambition. Ambition Zira herself once admired. He introduced himself as Baraza, a former follower of Scar, who had been exiled long before the Outsiders ever formed. He had lived in solitude, sharpening his resentment, nursing his hatred, waiting for a sign. Zira's death, it seemed, had been that sign. Baraza revealed that he had watched them from the shadows ever since they abandoned Jaziri's lands. He knew their purpose, their pain, and most importantly, the fire inside them that mirrored Scar Zira. He offered leadership, not dominance, but alliance. Spoke Zira's name with reverence, calling her one of the last true believers in Scar's vision. The lionesses exchanged hesitant glances. A male leading them was not part of Zira's method, but Baraza wasn't just any male. He carried stories of Scar they had never heard, secrets Zira herself never shared. As he spoke, their uncertainty melted. Baraza knew how to speak to their wounds. He reminded them how Zira had been wronged, how Scar's legacy had been erased, how Simba had rewritten history to crown himself as the rightful ruler. He retold the story of the Outsiders, painting Zira not as an extremist, but as a vision carrier betrayed by Prideland politics. Every sentence fanned the flames inside their hearts. By the time he finished, their loyalty had shifted not away from Zira, but toward the continuation of her will through him. Kibi stepped forward as representative of the group, her gaze sharp. If Baraza truly wished to honor Zira's legacy, he would need to prove himself, not with words, but with actions. His test came sooner than expected when hyenas ambushed their resting spot at dawn. Not Jaziri's peaceful clan, but rogue hyenas who lived by scavenging and killing anything weaker than themselves. The lionesses reacted instantly, but Baraza's power was undeniable. With brutal strength, he fought beside them, matching their ferocity blow for blow. When the last hyena fled into the horizon, the rogues stared at him with newfound respect. The was exactly what Zira's scattered ideology needed, a force strong enough to unite them. To weaponize their anger, to turn their resentment into strategy. Over the next days, Baraza trained them harder than Zira ever had. Not because she was weak, but because the Pridelands had grown stronger. Kion's Lion Guard had set a new standard for protection, and Simba's pride was no longer naive. The rogue lionesses needed to evolve. Baraza taught tactics Scar used before the hyenas corrupted his rule. He taught them tracking, ambush patterns, stealth formations. The lionesses became sharper, faster, more lethal. But more importantly, they became unified. The fractures that once existed between them, the disagreements, the grief, the uncertainty began to vanish. Zira's doctrine had given them purpose, but Baraza gave them direction. One night, under the pale moonlight, Baraza revealed his final plan. They would not return to the Pridelands to beg or negotiate. They would return to reclaim, to overturn Simba's legacy, and to challenge the future Kion represented. But domination was not their only intention. Baraza spoke of a new kingdom, molded from Scar's ideology, but refined with the discipline of the Outsiders. A kingdom where strength was the law and history would be rewritten under their reign. The Lionesses felt Zira's presence in every word he spoke. It was as if her ghost hovered behind him, nodding in approval. As dawn broke, the Lionesses stood tall on the canyon ridge, gazing toward the distant Pride Lands. They were no longer scattered remnants. They were an army shaped by Zira's doctrine and forged by Baraza's leadership. And with every breath they took, the echo of Zira's old war cry pulsed within them. The Pride Lands had no idea what was coming, and the rogues had no intention of stopping until Zira's legacy finally claimed the throne. She was denied. He felt something. A disturbance. A shadow. "Did you hear that?" Kion asked. Bunga blinked. "Hear what?" "I didn't hear anything except my stomach." "No." Kion closed his eyes. "It's like a voice. Far away. Angry. Did not know that the roar connected him not only to the kings of the past, but also to the echoes of the fallen. He did not know he had heard Zira. Meanwhile, in the ravine, Nyota began teaching again. She stood tall on a rock where Zira once gave orders. "Strength is everything," she barked. "Weakness must be destroyed." The Pride Lands belong to Scar. Simba is a thief. Remember Zira's words? She repeated each lesson with the same passion Zira had used. The young lionesses listened with wide eyes, absorbing every command. Nyota taught them Scar's tactics, Zira's hunting strategies, Zira's brutal fighting methods designed to break bones and spirit. They practiced until blood stained the dirt beneath their paws. But Nyota wanted more. She wanted an army. She sent scouts across the Outlands, gathering lionesses who felt abandoned, hungry, mistreated. Not all believed in Zira, but desperation makes fertile ground for manipulation. Nyota used fear. She used anger. She used the promise of a better land, of a life where they would reign instead of starve. Within weeks, the rogue pride doubled, then tripled. One night, a lioness named Asha stood before Nyota, her voice trembling. "Nyota, what if we are wrong? 2. What if Scar was the one who doomed us? What if Zira's hatred blinded us?" Nyota snarled, knocking her to the ground. Zira saw the truth. Simba betrayed us. The Pride Lands abandoned us. Scar gave us strength. But Scar killed Nyota's claws slashed across Asha's muzzle. "Scar was a hero," she hissed, "and Zira was a queen." Asha backed away in fear. The damage was not physical. Nyota wanted fear. Fear was obedience. One lioness spoke quietly from the back. "When do we attack the Pride Lands?" Nyota turned, eyes gleaming with fanatic fire. "When the next moon rises," she said. But fate had other plans. The next day, a rogue cub stumbled into Pride Lands territory. Timon and Pumbaa found him and brought him to Simba. He was small, thin, terrified. Simba approached gently. "What's your name, little one?" "Kekito," he whispered. "Where are your parents?" Simba asked. "Outlands," he said. "With Nyota," she says. "Zira is still leading us. Zira teaches us through her voice. She says we must destroy you." Simba felt his heart drop. Zira there. Her name alone carried the weight of old wounds. Kiara approached, placing a gentle paw on the cub's back. "You don't have to go back," she said softly. "You're safe here." But Simba's face had grown dark with concern. "Kion," he said with urgency, "there is danger rising in the Outlands." Kion met his father's eyes. "I felt something. A voice. I thought I imagined it." Simba shook his head. "You didn't." Zira's echo lives on through her lioness as Kion's chest tightened. The roar responded to danger, to threats, to imbalance, and he felt all three. Meanwhile, in the Outlands, Nyota planned their ambush. She paced back and forth, eyes blazing. "Tomorrow," she growled, "we march. Simba will kneel, Kiara will fall, and Scar's name will be restored."